Alright, today I'm going to teach you how to skip a lure with a bait casting reel. So when you're skipping with a bait casting reel, the first thing you want to do is you want to set your settings correctly. Assuming that you're a pretty advanced bait casting user, I always set my casting tension knob, this knob right here, it's always set the same. So it's basically just set so that when you release the spool, and if you touch the rod side to side like this, you don't see any movement. So if I go back a couple clicks, I went back 8 clicks, and now if I move it, I can feel the spool moving side to side. So I'll put it back up 8 clicks. And now when I go like this, the spool does not wobble side to side at all. And what that's going to do, that's actually going to help you cast farther, because when the spool wobbles side to side, you lose some of the spool speed momentum. The next thing you want to do is you want to adjust your magnetic brake settings correctly. Basically what I do when I'm skipping is I always just crank it up to the max. So we got 10 right here. And when you're skipping, you always want to use a bait that's, you don't want a bait too heavy, and you want a bait that's somewhat flat. So kind of like when you skip a rock, you want a flat rock that can skid on top of the water from skip to skip. So today I'm fishing with a toad lure, so that'll do just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple skip casting demonstrations. And when you're skip casting, things you want to remember are you want to do a roll cast, and I'll show a couple different angles for the skip cast. You want to do a roll cast, and you want to make sure that your rod is as parallel to the water as possible when you release the bait. So what that means is when you release the bait, you want the bait to be almost parallel with the water and just barely skimming it. That'll give you the maximum number of skips. And whenever you skip, you actually don't need, if you do it correctly, casting perfectly parallel to the surface, you don't need to use your thumb that much. I mean, your thumb should always be on the spool, but you won't need to apply that much tension. So let me go ahead and do a couple point of view angle skips. So that one I got all the way under. I'm gonna go ahead and demonstrate this for like a minute, then I'll show a different angle. So using this technique, getting the bait all the way under the dock will definitely help you reach places that other fishermen don't get to. And ultimately that'll help you catch more fish. An ideal baits for skipping, besides a toad bait, would be something like a senko. It works really well. Something like a tube. Tube works really well. Something that doesn't work quite as well is probably something like a jig. A jig's a little harder to skip because you have all the weight in the head. That makes it a little trickier to get the skip properly. You want the weight to be evenly distributed, so basically any soft plastics that like a toad or something would work pretty well. Alright, here's a different angle to demonstrate the skip cast. You're going to use a nice smooth roll cast and try to get that bait to fly as close to the water as possible, just like that. So when your thumb is really educated, you know exactly how much pressure you need to put on the spool to prevent backlashes, but also still to maintain maximum casting distance. So even when I'm skipping, I can still get a good, like about 30 to 40 feet. So that'll definitely get you where you need to go under docks and whatnot. Docks, tree stumps, whatever you need to get under. Using the skip cast is really effective. And yeah, I'm doing it on a bait casting reel. But if any of you guys have trouble on bait casting gear, spinning gear is actually a lot easier to do it on. I just want to go over a few more things about when you're skipping docks or skipping under whatever. First off, I think I forgot to mention on the cast settings, I said you want to make it so your spool does not wobble. And that's the setting I use all the time. I never change my tension knob. That's the setting I always have it. The good news about that is you can get far casting distance when you master it. The bad news is you definitely need really good thumb control, because I'll show you how fast my bait's going to fall if I release the knob. So it's going to drop straight to the ground. And if I don't use my thumb, I'm definitely going to backlash pretty much every cast. So you always got to keep a little bit of thumb pressure on. And regarding the gear that you want to use when skip casting, you want to use a rod that has some pretty good flex, because you need the bait to load up when you're doing the roll cast. That'll help launch the bait farther under the dock. And for line, you can use braid, monofilament, fluorocarbon, pretty much whatever you're comfortable with. Today I'm using braid, but you probably want to use heavy-ish line if you're actually fishing, because if you cook a nice fish under the dock and it wraps you around a piling, that's going to be trouble.